I'm going to just jump in, try to get this done as quick as possible to not waste your time. So I got these 3 live edge slabs. This one's 11 inches, the other one is 13 inches, and then 14 inches. So what is it that I'm going to do with these 14-inch wide and 13-inch wide live edge slabs if I don't have a planer? You know, with these being live edge, I need at least probably a 16-inch wide planer if I'm going to run them through. Well, that would leave me with one option, sitting here hand sanded. Okay, so this is going to get kind of funky because I was trying to time it as I was sanding, but I wanted you to see these boards, you know, were cut on a bandsaw sawmill, and so they've got all these little ripples in them, you know, that a bandsaw sawmill will leave behind. In years gone by, I kind of thought that most all sanders were basically about the same. You just had to get, you know, the Makita or the DeWalt, you know, Ridgit, you know, that they were so much better sanders. And then after I bought all the different brand sanders, I realized that they all worked basically the same. Some of them may not vibrate quite as much. Some of them may have variable speed, but all these little sanders that you get from the box store basically sand at about the same rate because they got the same stroke and they got the same RPM. So how do you get a board to sand faster? Well, that's when I realized, you know, I was going to go up and buy a Festool, and then I got to looking at the Festools, and they have the Rotex, you know, 150, you know, and this thing is supposed to take off the material so fast. So I got that, and then yes, it takes off the material super fast, but it's super heavy. That's not your everyday sander. That's why they have, you know, the ETS sanders, and you know, Merck's got their sanders. 3M came out with the sander last year, and you know, there's a lot of these sanders that one thing were in common. They all had a longer stroke, so they were 5mm instead of a 2.5mm stroke, and they all turned about the same RPM, and they all did great. So, you know, right here you see with this little box store sander, it took me almost 14 minutes, 13 minutes and 52 seconds, and you know, I got all the marks sanded out. Well, if you've been around my channel, you know I don't like having to spend more money than I have to for a tool. I like a tool that works good. I would much rather have a tool that looked like crap, that has a, you know, no name brand that works, than having a fancy, you know, name brand tool that doesn't work near about as well. So I found this company, XT Tools, that makes sanders. I don't know if they're copies or if their technology is just about the same, but they're the same style as those high-end sanders, except for they're at the fraction of the cost. So this is their normal, is what I use as my everyday sander now. This thing, you know, I feel that it's almost right there with the Festool and the Merca. He said his board, it was 7 minutes and 54 seconds. But sometimes you just need to get a lot of material taken off quick. This is the same style as the Rotec. Bosch makes one, Makita makes one, but these are what they call eccentric sanders, and rather than a random orbit sander where there's a bearing, and if you grab a random orbit sander disc, it will hold still and stop spinning, and then it's just the orbit kind of wiggles it back and forth. Well, this one has a gear drive, and so it's going to make a full spin every time. Now you see it's got a handle on the side of it, and I'm not getting the camera to show you how bad this board was. I've got both hands on this sander because this thing is a hoss of a sander. Now that was real time, and you seen how quick that board was just, you know, coming down. Now again, this board is 14 inches wide. Those other board, first board was 11 inches. So we're already talking about almost a 25% wider board, and yet this thing just makes short work of it. It's just crazy. So if you have like a house that you're trying to pull paint off, or some old boards that have paint taken off, you know, you're doing, you know, cutting boards, and you need to take down end grain. You know, people always complain about end grain. This thing, you know, it will do an end grain cutting board in just mere seconds almost. I mean, it's crazy at how fast that works. And the thing about it is it's just as smooth as any random orbit sander. You know, there's no cut marks, there's no swirl marks. You know, it's just amazing at how smooth that board comes out. All right, so I'm going to show you just how extremely efficient this sander is. Now, one thing you notice in the last two videos that you haven't seen any dust. Now, that very first video with that rigid sander, I had to get my dust mask on because I've gotten to where I don't even hardly wear my dust mask in the shop when I'm sanding because there's no dust. The dust collection on both of these two XT tool sanders is just phenomenal. I've just got them hooked to a little 5-gallon, shop vac there. And now this board almost got away from me because I didn't have it clamped down good. But I went ahead and I'm working about a foot area on the sides. And, this board's 14 inches wide. That's about 1/8 of an inch cut there with a saw blade. And this thing just works it smooth right out. You can't hardly tell where it was. There's not like just a big dip. It gradually goes down because this is working it like a random orbital sander, but yet, it's got that gear drive, so it's taking the material off. But again, with no swirl marks, this thing just took 1/8 of an inch gouge right out of there within 3 minutes. And you look at it, this thing is smooth. I mean, I can't say enough about just how smooth this is. And this is with 80 grit. Now, obviously, if this was like an ingrain cutting board or whatever, you're going to want to come back with one of the other sanders, and work your way down through the grits. So if you want to know if I really believe in this sander or not, well, I was up visiting my daughter. She just bought her first house up north, and it's got plaster texture all over the walls, and she's trying to strip it down. I was up there helping her, and we had all kinds of different sanders. I had one of those big, like 9-inch, drywall sanders, and this stuff was just, taking forever to get off. So when I got back home, I sent her one of these sanders, and it wasn't but a day later, and she was like, "That's the ticket. These things work so great." I'm buying them for the people I love the most. I'm going to put a link in the description for both of these sanders from MaxXT. If you really need to take down a lot of material quick, this Eccentric sander is definitely the way to go. If you're trying to strip like plaster or layers and layers of paint off of a house, and you just need to get a lot of material off quick, this Eccentric sander is the way to go. If you just looking what I call my EDC everyday carry sander, the other model of the MaxXT, I mean, it has impressed me. My brother-in-law, he came in my shop and he was so impressed that as soon as he got home, he went and bought one of them for his shop. And every person that I've let use it has gone and bought them one afterwards. It's just amazing at how well these sanders work. And the price is not that much more than what you would be paying for the box store sander, and you're getting your high-end sander quality. So check it out. Links are going to be in the description. If you have any comments, let me know, and I will certainly try to answer any questions you have.